Going on, members of the J area, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you for joining me on today's video. And usually on a Friday, we have the Friday 5 count where I share 5 of my personal favorite things depending on the list. But being that the Royal Rumble is under a month away, let's start to get in the mood, start in preparation for the big Royal Rumble. And with that being said, rather than the Friday 5 count, we're going to be doing a Friday fast count where I'm going to share some facts. And it's going to be 10 of the longest times spent in the Royal Rumble, spanning over the course of the last few decades. This is going from the men and the women, so you're going to see a little bit of both. Some stars from the past as well as stars from today. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with this Friday fast count. But before we get there, hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you're anything like me and can't get enough wrestling content, then you should consider becoming a member here on YouTube. You'll receive access to exclusive content like unique videos, live streams, shorts, and a more behind the scenes look of the channel itself. On top of that, once you become a member here on YouTube, you will receive priority first replies in the comments, as well as special shoutouts in future uploads. And speaking of future uploads, you'll also be able to get to decide what will be the future topics in these future videos. You can join the J area and become a member here by clicking on the link in the description, as well as in the link under the About Me section. This is your big opportunity to see the J area like no one else. We can't thank you enough for the continued support and the continued growth in the channel, so we don't want you to miss out on this exclusive offer. Now, let's get back to the video. Now, traditionally, the Royal Rumble match itself kind of takes place between an hour, around that time. It's 60 minutes of some of the best action. It's regarded as like the all-star game for professional wrestling. So beginning with that, we're going to start with the 60-minute men. At number 10, running at 60 minutes and 2 seconds, the 1992 winner of the Royal Rumble, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, having one of the greatest wins in the Royal Rumble's history, widely regarded as one of the best Rumbles of all time because of the star-studded cast that was a part of this matchup. Ric Flair would have eliminations that included Sid Justice and Randy Macho Man Savage, as well as the British Bulldog, and again would go on to have one of the all-time performances and was one of the first individuals to go 60 minutes in the Royal Rumble event. Next up at number 9, we have Chris Jericho, who just like Ric Flair entered the matchup at number 3 in 2017. And although it was an unsuccessful attempt at winning, he would last about 61 minutes, having a decent performance himself. And keep in mind, this was Chris Jericho in 2017, who had already been wrestling for almost 30 years at this point. Despite only eliminating 2 individuals, that including Sheamus and Cesaro, members of the Bar, Chris Jericho had an impressive showing in 2017 as he demonstrated that although he was a grizzled veteran at this point, was able to keep up with the young guns in 2017. Next up at number 8, we have the Game, the King of Kings, Triple H, who in 2006 managed to outlast Chris Jericho's time of 60 minutes and 13 seconds, as in 2006 he was able to last 60 minutes and 16 seconds. Again, this was in 2006, the Royal Rumble that Rey Mysterio would go on to win this event. Triple H entering the matchup at number 1 was able to eliminate the likes of Chavo Guerrero, Ric Flair, Kane, Rob Van Dam, just to name a few. And again, this was returning the time that Triple H had just lost the World Championship a year prior. So he was on his way up, trying to regain the position at the top of the company. Ultimately, it was not meant to be, as he would be eliminated by Rey Mysterio in that very same Royal Rumble. For the number 7 spot here on today's listings, we have a tie between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, 2 individuals who surely know each other fairly well. This was back in 2023. The 2 individuals would begin the matchup as number 1 and number 2 and would last the entirety of the matchup, which would go on for 61 minutes and 8 seconds. What I love about this is it's really a precursor to what we've seen this rivalry evolve into. Rhea Ripley at number 1, Liv Morgan at number 2, and again, they would last all the way to the very end as Rhea Ripley would ultimately eliminate Liv Morgan to win the matchup. And one of the more impressive feats in itself is that between these 2, they eliminated 10 women in the Rumble, accounting for a third of the entire match. Number 6, we have an unlikely name here on the list, as Bob Backlund, former WWF champion, was actually the number 3 entrant in the 1993 Royal Rumble event, as he would last 61 minutes and 10 seconds. Again, really early on in the Royal Rumble's history. This comes a year after Ric Flair's appearance in '92. So Bob Backlund, again, demonstrating that, hey, even for a veteran, even for one of the older guys, he was able to hang him up with the rest of the roster. He, along with the likes of Ric Flair, would help establish that, hey, although we were part of the older guard, we can still go. And Bob Backlund, unfortunately, wasn't able to win the matchup. Of course, this would be the one that Yokozuna would emerge victorious, but Bob Backlund putting on an all-star performance and certainly an MVP caliber performance here in an early Royal Rumble. We've now hit the number 5 spot, the top 5 in the history of the Royal Rumble's longest running participants in the matchup itself. And at number 5, we have another winner. It was 2004. Chris Benoit would last all the way from number 1 until the very end, which accounted for 61 minutes and 35 seconds, an all-time performance by Benoit, widely regarded as one of the best performances in the Royal Rumble's history. It's a shame that it will never really get talked about in the mainstream media, but he would eliminate 5 individuals, helping eliminate the Big Show and establishing Chris Benoit certainly as one of the best wrestlers that WWE had at that point. Again, Benoit with an all-time performance, and for obvious reasons, we don't really talk about it that much. A real recent entrant into this list, I'm talking 2024. At the number 2 spot, Naomi made her big return at the 2024 Royal Rumble and would go on to last 62 minutes and 10 seconds, a full-on hour and 2 minutes and some change for Naomi, beginning a huge comeback for her in the WWE. In this matchup, she would eliminate Alba Fire and even help eliminate Becky Lynch with the help of Jade Cargill, who ironically enough was the one that eliminated Naomi in this matchup, potentially setting up for a future feud here in 2025. Really cutting it down to the nitty gritty here, and at number 3 with 62 minutes and 12 seconds, Rey Mysterio in 2006 won the Royal Rumble. We talked about his opponent Triple H in that matchup, with Rey entering at number 2, dedicating the matchup to his good friend Eddie Guerrero, and was able to have a stellar performance, having eliminations against the likes of Psychosis, Super Crazy, Rob Van Dam, Randy Orton, and of course Triple H, as I mentioned. He would go on to have one of the iconic runs here, and it's really an awesome moment, a great Rumble in terms of the performance that Rey provides, and it's certainly one that I like to revisit every year in preparation. At number 2, we have this past year's Royal Rumble winner in 2024, Bayley. She would last an even 63 minutes in the matchup, eliminating the likes of Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Tiffany Stratton, and both members of The Way, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell. Bayley went on a tremendous run here. Rather than starting the matchup at number 2, like Naomi did that year, who had a great run as well, as we talked about, Bayley enters the matchup at number 3 and goes on to have a great story. We knew that Bayley was the leader of Damage Control. A lot of people wanted to see her win this Rumble and get her moment at WrestleMania, and it would ultimately culminate in a great matchup with her and fellow Damage Control teammate Io Sky. But at number 1, the longest time spent in a single Royal Rumble, that distinction goes to Gunther in 2023, lasting 71 minutes and 40 seconds. He would eliminate the likes of Booker T, Sheamus, both members of the New Day, and even Drew McIntyre. Gunther enters the matchup at the number 1 position and really demonstrates why he's one of the best, not only on the roster, but in the world. At this time, he was the Intercontinental Champion, but I really feel like this appearance in the Royal Rumble helped gain him a little bit extra momentum and put him on the path that we currently see him on today. He was ultimately eliminated by the eventual winner, Cody Rhodes, but to see the impressive feat that Gunther was able to achieve here is certainly something to marvel at. And that's the end of our list. Those are the top 10 longest time spent in a single Royal Rumble event. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Comment down below, who do you think will be the Iron Man or Iron Woman of the Royal Rumble event this year, as well as who might win the matchups. Also, consider subscribing to the channel in order to stay up to date with all the pro wrestling content that we produce here on YouTube. And also consider becoming a member of the Main Event Mafia, where you're going to have access to content that not everyone else has access to. Of course, with that being said, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you for joining me on today's Friday Fast Count. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.